Have you ever noticed a symptom in your body that felt small enough to ignore? Maybe you notice tension or a sense that something feels off or even changes in your bladder habits, but you're just too busy to listen. Did you know that stress and pelvic floor health are often more connected than many women realize? Today, I'm talking with Cate Arima, a board-certified nurse practitioner at Stanford Health Care. In this conversation, we explore the connection between stress, the nervous system, pelvic floor health, and the subtle ways that our bodies try to get our attention. What if stress has been showing up in your body in ways you didn't expect? I think you'll find this conversation both fascinating and reassuring. Let's see what Cate has to say. Find the full transcript and bonus resources for physician moms at inspiredmommds.com/100. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Inspired Mom MDs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy Van Prague. I help physician moms take back control of their time and energy so they can prioritize what matters most and thrive at work and at home. In each episode, I bring you honest conversations, inspiring stories, and practical strategies, including interviews with incredible women who are redefining success on their own terms. Let's listen in. Thank you for coming back to Inspired Mom MDs podcast. Today's guest is Cate Arima, a board-certified nurse practitioner at Stanford Health Care in urology, where she blends conventional medicine with a deeply integrative approach to healing. Cate is fellowship trained in integrative medicine through the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona. And she's also a 300-hour certified yoga teacher with advanced training in pelvic floor yoga and yoga for incontinence. What I find especially fascinating about her work is that she's helping bridge conversations we don't often hear enough about in medicine. And that's a connection between stress and the nervous system, pelvic floor health, and the body's deeper signals. She even created Stanford Health Care's first yoga for incontinence program for patients with a history of prostate cancer. And I'm sure we'll get into that in just a moment. Thank you for being on the show today. Welcome, Cate.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, yes. So, Cate, I'd love to start with your story. And so I know you work in urology and pelvic health, which I think is a unique space in medicine. What drew you to this area of work?
It's really quite interesting. So I was a labor and delivery nurse before I became a nurse practitioner. And so I wanted to be a nurse practitioner in OBGYN. And actually in MP school, I was like, don't even waste your time showing me man parts because I'm not going to work with men like ever, professionally like ever.
Right.
But it's just really, really funny how the universe guides you and has its own plan for you because I somehow ended up in urology of all places. When I had graduated from graduate school, there was no jobs available in OBGYN for me. And so minute clinics were really popular at the time. And so I got a job at a minute clinic. It shut down. And then I just was placing my application everywhere. And the VA in San Francisco had a job in urology of all places. And I thought, did they see my background?
Yeah.
But the interview went really well. And it was so interesting. I had no idea I would fall in love with the vets so much and that I would actually fall in love with urology so much. I call urology this secret pot of gold that just endlessly fills with gold. So you're like, oh my gosh, I got to tell my friends about this endless pot of gold. This is urology. So that's urology to me. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So today, are you working at the VA only?
No. Yeah. So I've actually been at Stanford Health Care since 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. And whenever I do meet a vet, it's interesting. We have vets who come to Stanford Healthcare in urology, but they also still see a urologist at the VA, which I find so interesting. So anytime I see a vet come in, I'm just so happy to see them. I'm
Mm.
like, oh, yay.
Wow. Yeah, I remember my time working at the VA in residency.
Mhm.
And it was a very different feel from all the other settings in medicine. And just the
Yeah.
patients were so grateful and so stoic too.
Well, that's it. I know patients get very frustrated when there's long wait times, but
Mhm.
what I found so interesting about the vets was exactly that. They were just so grateful. They've been to hell and back with war.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care if they had to wait an hour to see you. They're just so happy and grateful to see you.
So, I've noticed in medicine, I think there is a greater recognition among providers or practitioners, whatever word you choose, and patients alike that stress and emotional health are really tied to physical health. And I'm curious how that affects pelvic floor health. So, what have your urology patients taught you about this connection between stress and physical health, but especially the pelvic floor? How does that tie
Yeah.
in?
Oh my goodness. So it's so incredibly interesting. It wasn't until I started working in urology that I realized how much our brain is connected to our bladder. They're like this. It's like
Mm.
best friends, best friends. The brain and the bladder. So when we are anxious or when we are stressed, it does worsen our urinary symptoms. So for example, so we have something that's called urge incontinence. That's when you have the urge to pee, you can't get to the bathroom in time, and then you leak urine. There's also something we call it turnkey incontinence, which is basically urge incontinence. So we call it turnkey incontinence because this is back in the day when people would enter their home through their front door and they would have a key to open the front door. And so turnkey incontinence is, you're driving home, you feel the urge to pee, you're going to make it, you will. And then you pull into your driveway, you're running up to your doorsteps, you're
Mm.
fumbling with your keys and you're about to open the door with your key, turn the key, and oh, darn it, you leaked all over the place. So we call it turnkey incontinence. So the thing is that when we're so anxious and so stressed like that, just like in that example, it causes more tension in our body or more contractions in our body, and then we can't control in terms of the bladder, we can't control the bladder from leaking. What's interesting is that when we feel that urge to pee, if we just do a pelvic floor contraction or Kegels, what many people know it as,
Mhm.
then that automatically sends a message to the brain, which then sends a message to the bladder to relax. So,
Oh.
so, so for people who are constantly stressed, constantly anxious, constantly have tension within their body, their pelvic floor muscles are always somewhat tight or contracted.
Right.
So when they try to do that contraction, it's not a very strong contraction because it's already starting off tight.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always give the example of the bicep muscle. So a strong muscle has to contract well and stretch and relax well.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep the bicep muscle or your muscle contracted all the time and then you contract it again,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's not as strong of a contraction as if you were to relax the muscle out first, then come back and contract it. Then that's a stronger contraction, stronger muscle. So the same thing with your pelvic floor muscles. And then additionally, with people who have tight contracted muscles, it can lead to pelvic pain. It can lead to pain in the back, pain in the groin, pain with urination, just a whole bunch of additional symptoms.
What it sounds like you're saying is people who are under a lot of stress and have this constant contraction in their pelvic floor muscles need a way to somehow relax that muscle or band of muscles. So that leads into how do they know they need to do that and how do they do that?
Yeah, so this is why pelvic floor physical therapy is absolutely wonderful
Mhm.
because oftentimes when people have pelvic floors that are too contracted, they pee frequently, not because they're afraid of leaking, but because as their bladder fills, they start to have a pain sensation
Mm.
in the pelvis area. So first identifying that, this pelvic pain I'm having is from a tight pelvic floor. So first identifying that is really key. And one of the treatment options is pelvic floor physical therapy, where they teach you, okay, can you sense the pelvic floor when I press my finger here or here? Does it cause any pain? We call them trigger points.
Mm.
And then once we identify those, then then the pelvic floor physical therapist teaches the patient how to relax those muscles. And additionally, we tell patients to take a warm bath, a warm shower, just anything to release some tension in the body.
Okay. Okay. And then I'd love to also hear how yoga plays into this because you have started a
Mm.
yoga for incontinence program.
Yes.
So explain that part to us.
Yeah. Yoga, I absolutely love yoga because what yoga does is it does get us in tune with the sensations within the body. So we oftentimes go through life not even knowing if we're stressed or tense,
Mhm.
or we don't necessarily feel the weight of the burden that we're carrying, because in this very fast-paced society, especially in this fast-paced world of medicine, it is all about go, go, go. I don't have time. I don't have time to think about my feelings or to feel my feelings or to feel my body, because I need to keep going.
Yeah.
So what I love about yoga is it actually gets us in tune with the body and makes us realize, oh, gosh, there is tension. So when I teach them, I say, relax the shoulders. Ah, relax the shoulders. I didn't even know I was tensing my shoulders until you said, relax the shoulders. So
Mhm.
that's why I love yoga, because it gets us in tune with seeing where are the areas of tension and then how can we relax them.
Okay. I watched a brief video that of a
Yeah.
presentation you gave about this, and I would really love if you just spoke briefly about how the poses help with relaxing. Maybe the person in the yoga class is not directly thinking, I'm going to relax my pelvic floor muscles or my shoulders, but they're doing certain moves that help to do that without
Yes.
even knowing it. So maybe they're not thinking about it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
can you tell us about the moves? How does that
Yes,
work?
yes. So the pelvic floor yoga class, or I call it yoga for incontinence,
Mhm.
the class is designed to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So the different poses are either working on contracting the pelvic floor muscles or stretching, lengthening, relaxing the pelvic floor muscles. So specifically for stretching and lengthening the pelvic floor muscles, I do standing forward bends. So when you spread the legs wide and you hinge forward and do a standing forward bend, that stretches the pelvic floor muscles. Squats, so we do a squatting pose that also lengthens the pelvic floor muscles. And then we do a happy baby. So that's when you're laying on your back and you're using your hands. Most people, they think a happy baby, they're laying on their back and then they use their hands to either grab their ankles or their feet. I do a modified version of that where you actually grab your knees and spread the legs wide. And the reason for that is because I want us to keep the natural curves of the spine. I want the pelvis to stay in a neutral position. When people are hunching forward and reaching for their feet or their ankles, it actually causes a tilting back of the pelvis, which then can cause more of a contraction of the pelvis. So by keeping the pelvis neutral or even tilting it slightly forward, that actually will stretch and lengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So, and then in terms of contraction, so when we do work on contraction of the pelvic floor muscles, it's all about contraction of the deep core muscles. So the core muscles are actually not just the abdominal muscles, it's the pelvic floor plus the deep abdominal muscles plus the tiny muscles along the spine called the multifidus muscles. So we do a lot of bird dog. That's when you're in a tabletop position and you extend one hand forward and then the opposite leg back, maintaining your balance. We do marching poses that also help maintain our balance. So those are things that we do for the contraction of the core muscles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds beneficial to attend one of your classes, and I hear that they are streamed. live or even
Yes.
asynchronous so people can learn these
Yeah.
techniques from you. Is that right?
So, so they're not asynchronous
Okay.
yet, but yes, they are live stream.
Okay.
So I teach at two places. So I do teach at work, and those classes are for my prostate cancer patients. And the reason why I chose them was because I wanted to choose a subset of the population who I thought would not come to a yoga class or who were afraid of coming to a yoga class.
Hmm.
And so I chose men and I chose older men.
Hmm.
And, prostate cancer, the treatments for prostate cancer, they can cause urinary incontinence. They have surgery or if they have radiation that can lead to urinary incontinence. So I thought this would be a great place to start. And then I also teach at a local studio called Nest Yoga. It's in Oakland. And those are on Fridays at 10:30 in the morning. And they are in studio and they are also live streamed. So you can
Okay.
join from anywhere.
Okay.
And we're actually taking a break right now from the classes just because I'm going on vacation, but we're going to resume them again on June 19th. So every Friday at 10:30.
Okay. Ooh,
Yeah.
I was going to talk about that at the end, and I wanted to plug that in now while you were talking about
Oh,
yoga.
sure.
Or
And
yeah.
I should say it's low cost. So it's a
Mhm.
sliding scale because I really want to bring this class to the community. So you could pay anywhere from $5 to $25.
Oh, that's
Um,
that's that's a deal. Yeah.
it's a deal. It's the
Wow.
cheapest yoga around.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, turning a few minutes ago, you mentioned about, or you alluded to the stress and kind of the rush of life. And a
Um,
lot of my audience includes women, of course, with Inspired Mom MDs. So I'm really interested in how women experience this impact of stress, both, from external pressure and also maybe internal drivers to be productive and to achieve. And so I'm just curious about, as a woman in medicine, what have you learned and how has this helped you personally, just knowing about this mind body connection?
yeah. So I would say it's really quite interesting because I teach the practice. I study all these things about embodiment, and yeah, I still flip my lid.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of being human.
Hmm.
Uh, I would say, especially in the past year or so, I'm going through perimenopause, and I'm just actually really loving how perimenopause and menopause seems to be this hot topic lately.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yay, I'm going through it. Because yeah, so my body is changing, my moods are changing, my temperament is changing. And so to feel that it's actually okay to be having these emotions, to be having these bodily changes, and that actually nothing is wrong with me, I think is so important. And as a woman, yes, who works in this profession where productivity and achievement is highly valued and contemplation, rest, relaxation is not valued,
Hmm.
I feel that it's important to understand okay, your body is going through changes, at least for perimenopause and menopause right now. Like your body's going through changes. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have to buy into the system that only wants productivity and achievement. It's okay. You can actually take a step back and rest and self reflect, which I think is so important. That's how we know more and more about ourselves and what really matters the most to us when we do that self reflection. So,
I agree
yeah.
100%. Isn't it nice that it's becoming more normalized? I feel so grateful that you and me going through the same thing
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
able to freely talk about this, whereas our moms and our grandmothers
Oh, I
weren't. Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I know. No, I feel very fortunate that I'm aging with this lovely, lovely group of women and that we're
Yeah.
all talking about it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you wish that healthcare providers would talk about more or be more open about? So you and I are talking about this, but what about the healthcare providers with their patients?
With their patients or with each
Yeah.
other? with their
Well,
patients?
I think with their patients, I feel like there's a lot of things that women are taught to normalize or dismiss their symptoms. These are just comments that I hear from other women that their symptoms are dismissed, or they're told that, oh, you're feeling this way, that's normal, just deal with it. So I'm wondering, what could care providers be more open about to help these women
Yeah.
who are being kind of dismissed?
Yeah. My hope is that providers will definitely better listen to our patients, but more importantly, to validate that their feelings are real. I was thinking, I asked the question, what is it that I hope providers are talking to each other about more, or to their patients about more?
Hmm.
And actually, I would say the answer is the same. I want people to talk about their feelings more. I mean, feelings is almost not allowed in medicine. It's like, who has time for feelings? But that's where things really matter. This is actually also why I do love urology so much, because, for example, if someone is coming in with a lot of urinary incontinence, they're wearing, 5 pads or diapers a day, okay? I'm not going to force them to take medication or to do any sort of procedure to help the urinary leakage if they're not bothered by it. So it's like, okay, well, how do you feel about your leakage? I'm okay. Oh, you are? Okay, then fine. As long as you're not getting urinary tract infections and as long as you're not having any
Right.
irritation of the skin, you know, we don't have to we don't have to give you a pill to fix this. So then that's fine. So I think I just want providers to really listen and to understand, like, what is it that you're most concerned with here?
Hmm.
What are you feeling here?
Hmm. And not assume.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it's hard for providers if we're not in touch with our own feelings, then we're not going to be open to anybody else's feelings, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
We, as a provider, we oftentimes we enter the patient's room with this sort of wall, and that and the patients as well will enter the room also with this sort of wall.
Mm-hmm.
So until we can show the patient, like, look, I'm willing to set down my wall, then the patients could say, oh, okay, well, if you set down your wall, then I feel safe then to set down my own wall.
Right.
That's where the true connection, the true healing happens.
Mm. So listening and opening the doors to communication.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
As
both
with
directions. Yeah, go
as
ahead.
with every single thing in life, every single relationship in life.
Right. Right. So this applies to your significant other, your kids, your friends, your family, your acquaintances,
No,
your colleagues. It's, yeah, so
no.
true.
I know.
Such a good point. What is one thing you hope that listeners will take away from this conversation today?
I hope that listeners self-reflect, take time out for yourself. And when I say take time out for yourself, I mean do something that you love, go out in nature, do something that brings you joy. If you don't
Mhm.
even know yet what brings you joy, just sit back, just reflect. If you need a journal
Yeah.
to figure out what brings you joy, do something that brings you joy.
Mm.
We carry so much in our everyday lives. It's hard to remember that we do have this like true deep joy, true deep happiness within us that we can share with others.
Mhm.
So that's my biggest hope. Just do
Yeah.
something that makes you feel happy and then share
Yeah.
it. This is why I love music festivals. Everyone's so
Yeah.
happy there. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Yay, I love this song. I love this song too." You know,
Yes.
strangers loving
Right.
the same mutual thing. Awesome.
Yeah. They don't have a wall up.
You don't
You
have a
take down your
wallet.
wall when you go to a music festival.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And connect with
Yeah.
other people. Mm.
Exactly. That's
The
the gift. That's the gift. The
connection. Yeah.
connection. It's not
Hmm.
the fact that, you know, I'm smarter than you, I sing better than you, or whatever. The gift is like, I'm willing to connect. You're willing to connect? Oh my gosh, look at this. And everybody could do that if they're able just to open up to it.
Right. Right. And like you said, if you don't really know what will spark joy in your life at the moment, you don't have to put pressure on yourself to have joy that moment. It's just reflecting, and you can just think about it. That can be your one thing for the day. I'll spend 3 minutes thinking about what would be really cool for me to do. It doesn't mean you have to do it. And then the next day, maybe you do it, and it just builds on itself. So
Yes,
I think joy
exactly.
brings more joy and spreads joy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like that word. A good 3-letter word.
Yes, it's that
Sure.
endless pot of gold that you want
There
to
you
start telling
go.
your friends about. Like, it's endless. It's an endless pot of
Mhm.
gold. Come over, get some.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. So we talked about your yoga program. So how can people connect with you? And again, remind us how they can find your classes.
Yeah. So you could connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn under Cate Arima. You could
Mhm.
also find me on Instagram at Collective Loving Compassion. Collective Loving Compassion on Instagram. And then my yoga class for the public is at Nest Yoga. It's NEST dash yoga at yoga.com. And I teach every Fridays at 10:30 starting on June 19th.
Okay. And that's 10:30
Yeah.
Pacific time?
At 10:30, yes, Pacific
Okay.
time.
Got
10:30
it.
a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Yes.
Okay. Got it. Perfect. I will put all those links in the show notes so people can just click. I'm so glad you carved out time to talk to me today and talk to the audience. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so fun. I love that you're doing this podcast, and I feel like it's so important. It's so important for providers. It's so important for women. I encourage you to keep going. I love that you're doing this. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today to Inspired Mom MDs. If this episode resonates with you, please share with a friend who may benefit too. And I humbly ask you to please leave a review so other doctor moms can find me too. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for medical advice or care. I'm a board-certified physician, but this content isn't connected to my clinical practice and no doctor-patient relationship is formed here. Please always talk to your own health professional about any mental or physical health concerns. Please see inspiredmommds.com for full disclaimer.